So here's exactly how I stay in shape whilst working as a full-time bus driver. The first biggest reason why I'm able to stay in shape whilst working as a full-time bus driver is because I have a massive why, or you can call it a massive purpose, which is I want to try and be the strongest version of myself, and I also want to be the strongest person for my family, which means in the future, when my son looks at me, when my daughter looks at me, I want to be that strong father. When my mum looks at me, I want to be that strong son. When my siblings look at me, I want to be that strong brother. So because of that exact reason, I'm able to push myself in certain days where I'm not sort of feeling it. I'm not, really not in the mood. But when I have that thought in my head, like, no, you know what, this is for my family in the future. This is for myself as well. I have to get to the gym, or I have to go out for this run. Once you have that purpose and that why, you'll be able to genuinely go through any sort of low emotions. And this is a big thing, because when you're working a full-time job like myself, I work as a bus driver, it can get very tiring. You work mornings, you work late, and you sometimes don't want to get out of bed. You sometimes don't want to be working out. Just like today, I've got a shift literally happening in about 2 hours. I literally finished my hill sprints, went for a little walk, is my cardio day, and then I'm recording this video now because I'm like, you know what, let me just get one video out, or let me just record one video and then I can edit it later and post it. So having a reason for why you want to do certain things is a big reason why certain people get results and other people don't get results. So have a big reason as to why you want to get into shape. So if you're like myself, you're working a full-time job, you might have kids, you might have a wife that relies on you, might have your mum or dad who needs taken care of. So you need to be that strong figure in your family. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm able to push myself during low days and go to the gym, and why I'm able to stay in shape whilst working this full-time job. Now, the second thing I want to point out is you need to have good scheduling. You need to have good level of productivity. If you're somebody who just goes to work, comes home, just sleeps, and maybe just does the odd like home chores and the odd workout here and there, you're just never going to be able to get to a decent level. Or I'm not saying I'm a bodybuilder or anything like that. I don't actually even advise people to train like a bodybuilder when you're working a full-time job. It can get very tiring and you just won't be able to balance the both, and it's not a long-term solution for you. So I recommend you start scheduling your days before the day comes. So the night before, think to yourself or say to yourself, which I do, or you can even write it down. I don't really write it down because it's just not something that works for me. I prefer to just think to myself, okay, tomorrow I want to do this workout, I want to go roughly around this time, so let me wake up around this time, and then I make my day like that. So what you want to do is you want to schedule around your busy day shifts, or if you're working a 9 to 5, think to yourself, do you want to go early in the morning, or do you want to go after work? It's up to you when you feel like you've got the most energy. So I work as a bus driver, like you guys know, and my shifts are always changing. Sometimes I start at 4:30 a.m. Sometimes I'm starting at 4:30 p.m. Like today, I'm starting at 4:30 p.m. It's a Sunday. And then some days I'm finishing at 12:30 p.m. And then there's some days I'm finishing at 1 a.m., which I did the last week. So I've noticed that, I need to try and find a schedule that works for me. So if I'm doing a morning shift, I know as soon as I come home, I might be you know sleep deprived a little bit because the night before I didn't sleep properly, or I might just not be in the mood, or I might just want to get a nap in. So I tell myself, okay, if I'm finishing at 12:30 p.m, I'm going to try and hit the gym around 4 or 5 o'clock, so then I can go to sleep hopefully by 9, 10 o'clock latest for my shift tomorrow, which is going to be at 4:30 a.m. So you want to try and work around your schedule. So if I've got a late shift, what I'll do is I will say to myself, okay, I'm going to wake up early in the morning, something reasonable, so 8, 9 a.m. And then I'll go to the gym, let's say around 11, 12, maybe 1, if my duty's starting at 2, 3 or 4 o'clock. Just because I don't like to go early in the morning. It's just never been working for me. It just never has. And I don't see it really working for me. I just don't have that sort of energy in the early in the morning. So what I like to do is I would like to work on a skill maybe, or if I'm making YouTube videos, I would like to edit videos, or if I've got other like home chores or whatever, I like to do those things in the morning. And then I like to go around 11, 12 when my energy is a bit more higher. I've had a breakfast, like a light breakfast, and then I'll go gym. So work around your schedule. If you're working in construction, if you're working in a 9 to 5, look at your schedule and think to yourself, when is it the best time for me to hit the gym? And then work around that. Now, the third thing I want to mention is your diet. You have to, make sure you're staying away from shit food. A lot of people who, work a job and are trying to stay fit, what they do is they will always buy the cheapest option when it comes to their lunchtime or dinner time or breakfast times. They'll go to like Greg's and then get like, I don't know, these oily food, or, when they go on their lunch break, they'll get like the 2 wings and chips just because it's a bit cheaper. I don't know. There's so many there's so much bad food out there that are just like the cheap alternative for people to have, because a lot of us are obviously drained in energy and we don't have the time to meal prep and stuff, and I completely understand that. So what I like to do is I like to spend extra couple quid on my food. So what I mean by that is I'll rather get like the grilled chicken and chips maybe, but at least I know it's grilled wings and it's not fried wings, and it might cost me like 11, 12 pound, but the 8 wings and chips, or I don't know, 6 wings and a burger and chips might have cost me like 6, 7 pounds. So I've told myself I'm going to spend the extra 4, 5 pounds to make sure I'm eating good food. When it comes to breakfast, I'll eat stuff like full English breakfast where I've got sausage, beans, egg, and toast. When it comes to like dinner, same again. I'll try and avoid, all the bad food, and I would go for maybe like a lamb chop with rice. Obviously, you have to look within your area as to where you're working in. So if you're in an area where you don't have this option of like lamb chops or grilled chicken and whatnot, then you might have to push yourself to, meal prepping. Maybe meal prep yourself a wrap. But I'd like to think most workplaces do have, decent restaurants around them, or you should have a microwave, which means you should be able to go out there and, get some food from Asda, Lidl, whatever it is, and get yourself some chicken, get yourself some, I don't know, maybe some lamb chops, marinate them a little bit, maybe you might have to just discipline yourself a little bit more, and, go through that route, because when you start eating shit food, you are going to have a very, shit physique. And not just that, for your own health as well, it's just terrible. And don't get me wrong, I do have my bad days or my cheat days, but I try not to have them too often in a week. And I always, look at my life in like 7 days, in like a week. So what I like to do, so yesterday, I had a doner, burger, and some chips, and I had a Red Bull as well. So it was my off day. The last 4 or 5 days I had chicken biryani with egg and whatnot, and I had still drinks. So I do have my off days, but even on my off days I still try and make sure I've got the protein in and whatnot. And one other thing I'm going to include is just make sure you're having a high protein diet. I'm even telling myself this as well. I want to try and stay away from, these carbs, especially coming from an Asian family. We eat a lot of rice, we eat a lot of like potato and stuff like that. And, a lot of our curries got a lot of oil. So what I've started to do is once I'm picking out the curry, I'll literally put the chicken onto the side of the bowl, and I'll reduce a lot of the oil just so I've just got the protein there, and I'll reduce some of the rice as well. And that way it just, make sure that I'm eating a lot more healthier than a lot of people in my sort of ethnic background. So yeah, make sure your diet's not on like point. It doesn't need to be like a bodybuilder, high protein, like it needs to be like this chicken, broccoli type of meal or anything like that. Just make sure you're getting in chicken, you're getting in like maybe lamb chops, you're getting in maybe steak. Just make sure it's high protein, good protein. You're getting like nuts and eggs and whatnot. That way you've got the high protein there. Stay away from too much carbs and your diet will be sorted. Now moving on to the workouts that I do. So what I like to do is I like to make sure my workouts are somewhat intense. Not always. If I've got like a late shift coming up, I know that if I have a very intense workout, I'm gonna struggle within my shift. And especially working as a bus driver, it's a very dangerous job. If you're feeling sleepy, if you're feeling like, sleep deprived or whatever, or if you're very low in energy, you're going to lose concentration. And one bad mistake, it can lead to like really bad outcomes, which I don't want for myself or for the passengers on my bus. So what I would say is try and make sure you're doing stuff like weighted pull-ups. Obviously, if you're a beginner, you just want to do normal pull-ups. Make sure you're doing stuff like barbell rows. Make sure you're doing stuff like bench press. I like to make sure I'm doing a lot of the compound movements, just because it's hitting a lot of different muscle groups in my body. And that way, especially if I'm working out 3-4 times a week to maintain my physique, I need to try and make sure I'm hitting each muscle group at least once a week. So when it comes to workouts, I like to train 3 to 4 times a week. If I'm having a very good week, I'll train 5 times a week, but that 5th day may just be like a cardio day, or like a cardio and ab day, or whatever. Just something light, but just to keep me moving. And yeah, your workouts, I like to just keep it like this. So the first training of the week I will do is legs, just because I like to get legs out of the way, and it's the hardest muscle group to train, and probably the most annoying muscle group to train as well as a man. I'm pretty sure you guys know as well. So I like to get legs out of the way, and then I'll go on to chest and triceps, and sometimes I put in some shoulders as well. And then the 3rd day I'll do back and biceps. And if I'm having a good week, like I said, on my 4th day I will do shoulders and arms, which I did yesterday. And if I'm having a very good week, I'm doing 5 days a week, then I'll do cardio, just to make sure I'm keeping my body fat low. It's a big target for myself now, where I want to try and make my body a little bit more of that tighter skin, reduce my body fat a little bit. I feel like maybe I'm eating too much carbs and whatnot. So that's like a personal goal of mine, where I'm trying to get my physique into a lot better place now. So I'm trying to implement cardio, and I think everybody should implement cardio, especially if you're working a job like myself, where I'm just sitting down. I'm not moving my legs much, so I try to make sure I'm doing either walks or running, or like HIIT workouts, any sort of movement where it's quite fast, is moving my legs quite a bit. So yeah, I like to make sure my workouts are quite simple, but also quite intense as well. So make sure you guys are getting that in as well. All right, now that the 4th point is out of the way, let's go on to the 5th point, which is stress management. You need to understand that when you're working a full-time job, it can become very stressful to also try to get into shape, and also manage your job, and also your family life and other things that you've got going on in your life. You might be running a business, like a side hustle, whatever. You want to focus on that as well. So what I like to do is I like to reduce a lot of things in my life. I like to cut out any unnecessary bullshit out of my life. So I know that a lot of people, what they do is they'll work a full-time job, and what they do is they come home and all they do is maybe scroll on TikTok or social media and whatnot, and just waste their time. Like, a lot of people say, oh, I don't have time throughout my day to get a workout in. You genuinely just need 1 hour. And if you look at your screen time, it's probably like 2, 3, 4 hours a day. And then you're also going to work for 8, 9 hours. So what I like to do is, I told myself now, any social media or any sort of content that I want to watch or anything like that, keep it for bus driving. Keep it for when I've got a stand time, 10, 15 minutes on the side, when I've got my break time, watch my content, wherever, let my mind chill, or just go through things or whatever. Just because I know when I'm at work, I just won't be able to, let's say, edit a video, or I won't be able to make a video unless I'm vlogging that day, or I won't be able to do any like deep tasks. So why not go on to YouTube and learn the things that I'm interested in? So I'm somebody who's come to a point now where I do consume a lot of educational content. So it's nothing like it's not like I'm wasting my time watching these type of content. But sometimes I go onto YouTube and I'm like, man, I've watched a lot of these videos. I'm not really interested in all these videos. And I have a book with me, and my bag's there, by the way, so I'm pointing at my bag. I have a book with me which I like to read. So yeah, I like to get those things in. reading is something that also helps like reduce that sort of that dopamine and whatnot. So yeah, I like to, you know, read and whatnot. Even if it's just on my phone, I like to read about football, whatever it is. So reduce your stress levels, and then your personal life as well. You know, if you've got so many issues with so many people, you know, try and resolve it. Try and maybe even cut it off if you need to, because what it's going to do is it's going to drain your energy a lot, especially if you're working a full-time job like myself. I know what it's like. You know, you want to focus on your fitness, you want to, you know, improve yourself day by day, and once you've got all these things going through your head, like you got all these negative thoughts happening in your head, it's going to be very hard for you to think positively about the run that you're about to go on, or you think positively about the workout that you're about to do. So yeah, reduce that stress, man. And another thing I'll just point out is when I mentioned about consuming like educational content and stuff like that, I see a lot of people consuming maybe the wrong type of content, like things that just not benefiting them. And what that tends to do is it's just going to make you, you know, worry about these odd little things. Like, you know, you might have watched like a podcast on divorced people, and then you might have watched like a comedy what do you call it, show or something like that. Then you've got this Netflix show running in the background. I personally keep my life quite simple in the and it is quite boring as well. That's something that I will you know, tell you guys here for a fact. When you want to improve your life, when you want to set things straight in your life, things are going to be a little bit boring, and you're just going to have to get used to it. And I've had to also tell myself this, that life is going to be a little bit boring in this moment in time where I'm trying to build my YouTube channel, I'm trying to stay in shape, I'm trying to, you know, go to my work and, you know, bring that stable income. So life is going to be a little bit boring, but what I need to understand is that it's just for maybe a couple years, and then I can have my dream life, or I can have the life that I've always wanted. So understand that your life may be a little bit boring. You might be just going to work, coming home, working out, or going to the gym and working out, and then you come home again, and then you're doing chores, or you're doing maybe some extra work like a side hustle, or you're maybe helping out with family, or you're spending time with family and friends. So yeah, but what I've tried to do is I've tried to basically just cut out any bullshit out of my life, focus on the most important things in my life, which is I want to financially become a lot more stable. I want to build this YouTube channel. I want to, you know, work on my physique. I know that a lot of people think that, oh, you're living a boring life. And I will say this genuinely, like when you're working on yourself, like when you're working on your fitness, when you're working on your financial stability, when you're working on a project like YouTube, all these things, you're basically improving yourself in different areas of your life. Even like when it comes to like religion and stuff like that, like I'm trying to improve in that area as well. Even with your family, like relationship wise, you want to try and make sure your relationship is good with your parents, your friends and family. So in that area as well, I'm trying to improve in. So when you're focusing on those areas, the things that do matter, life is genuinely not boring. I know if I said it even earlier, like life can get boring, and it is true. Like, you know, because we're so used to this fast life, we're so used to this high dopamine life where, you know, social media is giving this, you know, this exaggerated life, this, you know, colorful life and whatnot. But then once you go down to basics, it just feels so odd. It feels so numb almost. But when you start living it, once you start maybe like, let's say, praying, you're, you know, reading, you're, you know, spending quality time with parents, or spending quality time with your siblings or your friends or your family, you know, where there's no phones involved, when you're not playing video games, when you're, you know, staying away from all these bad habits, life can feel like, where's the fun? But once you get used to it, once you're in that flow state, once you're, you know, in the groove, you'll start to feel like, you know what, man, this feels good now. It feels like this is the normal life that I should be living. Sorry, I rambled on this topic of stress management. I think it's a big one. That's why I kept it till last. Yeah, just make sure, you know, you stay away from things that are just bothering you, things that are, you know, putting in negative thoughts in your head, and just keep your life simple. That's what I say to people. You know, work on things that are important for you in your life, and remove all the distractions out of your life. And that way it makes staying in shape a lot easier. If you're new around here, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, and make sure to comment if you found this video valuable. And check out my recent video on day in the life as a bus driver.